Okay. Peace and shalom, family. Peace and shalom. It's your brother Divine Prospect, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. And I'm here with another live stream session. Now, today's live stream session is really just a check-in session. It is July 4th right now. It is currently 8:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is not going to be a Freestyle Friday, which is typically in the afternoon or evenings. And the reason for that is because today is going to be pretty busy with me and my family. And technically, I'm still on the clock. Well, not right now, but later on. So just wanted to check in, say what's up to the family, talk about a few things. Also, if y'all are interested in regards to my perspective as it pertains to July 4th, which I think most of us in here can all, for the most part, all agree has nothing to do with us. I have a great lecture that I did years ago. I should reshare that lecture here if y'all are interested in it. I'll share the link in the chat and y'all can check it out. And yeah, I think you'll really enjoy that one, right? Okay, so I'm gonna wait a moment for more people to stream on in. Again, this is not gonna be an extensive session. Right now, my children, all of them are home with me, and they're sleeping right now. So I just so happen to be up at this time, which is very rare because I'm not really much of a morning person, except for when I have to go to work. But for the most part, because Yah has woken me up, and I do have the time, rather invested in him and his people. I was going to do some extensive studies, some stuff that I'm working on, but I'm going to do this live stream with y'all. What I can do is kind of show you some of the stuff that I'm studying that'll probably be beneficial to a lot of y'all here. If you're signed up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/divine prospect, you'd already know about this website. So I have Accordance and Logos. I have the native applications for x86 and Windows on my computer that I typically use to do like really deep in-depth studies. But then it's also online applications that I use as well. So Logos has an online app that I use, a web app, but I also use other Bible apps. As y'all know, on here we use very frequently Bible Hub, and we use Blue Letter Bible, but I also use the Step Bible and the Intertextuality Bible, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show y'all the Intertextuality Bible, and some studies I've been doing in regards to comparative cultural analysis, taking a look at the text of the Bible and seeing if there's any allusions to epics and other literary works of the ancient Near East, and or if there are direct quotations for it, which is very rare. It's mostly allusions and or is mostly writing styles, right, or literary styles. And or literary devices, right, that are used in a very similar way. And I'm going to show you some of what that study looks like in regards to when I do it. And then also, if anybody's interested in anything else that we have mentioned here, all the resources is on Patreon. So all the websites that I use, all the applications that I use, I even have Accordance and Logos, the paid versions, on the Patreon if y'all are interested and getting those applications there on the Patreon. You can just do a search for it and it'll come up. You'll see the post for it with the details. So we also offer that to y'all as well. And anything else that was mentioned here as far as a resource will be on there, and or just let me know and I can share it in the chat and we can take a look at it together, or you can take a look at it on your own time. Okay. So in the event that I'm unable to go live today, which for the most part is looking very slim to going live later because all my kids are here, I want to do this session so that way I can touch base with y'all. All right. So let me go ahead and get that that lecture real quick for y'all. I'm gonna drop it in the chat. Let me see. All right, here we go. There you go. I just muted this stuff. What's going on? What happened to my... 1 second. I don't know what just happened. It just, all my tabs just started playing. All right, here we go. This is what we're looking for. All right, I'm going to drop it here. I think I should drop it. Let's do this so that way I can pin it. All right, let's do this. All right. So the link is in the chat and it's pinned. All right. So if anybody's interested in looking at some historical information in regards to the 4th of July and what my perspective is in regards to the 4th of July and what we should be doing whenever this holiday arises, all that information is there in that link in the chat. Click on that and you can check it out. All right. Damon Williamson. Yes, I see whatever your comments that you're leaving in the chat, brother. I see them. I don't think you're shadow banned with this particular profile that you're using. Okay, yeah, I see the other one. Okay, no problem, brother. I see you. So yeah, you're not shadow banned over here. So I can definitely see your comments. All right. So that's the link right there. Take a look at it. It's called Independence Nay. You know, you say Independence Day. It's Independence Nay. Nah, no independence. Because again, that holiday has no direct correlation to us as a melanated people, because my ancestors, I know for certain, coming from West Virginia, on my dad's side. On my mother's side, my ancestors were in the Caribbean, right, in the U.S. Virgin Islands. But I know during that time in America, my father's side of the family in the Virginias were on the plantations. How do I know this? Well, I've done some research and also working with ancestry.com and was able to discover a lot of the manifests as it pertains to my ancestors on my father's side when they were working on plantations at that time. There was no independence for my people on that day in 1776. No independence for my people. So when I see my people go out there and they're wearing these American flag shirts and pants and holding up the flag and all of that, like these same people on Juneteenth was rocking out with the red, black, and green flag, going to all the picnics, going to all the events and so forth. Then they show up on July 4th with the American flag. That American flag has nothing to do with us. Historically, during that time period, it has nothing to do with us. But they want you to forget about their history and be all inclusive, be kumbaya, and say, oh, we're American, so it's part of the American experience. And I'm like, what? Okay. So they want to erase that painful history, and they want you to enjoin into this July 4th festivity. And we're not going for it. It's bad enough they're trying to erase America's sin stains of slavery here in America. We have our people that's working in conjunction with them, unbeknownst to them, where they're trying to say, no, we did not come over from the western central coast of Africa. We were native here to the Americas. I had tons of debates on that subject matter with brothers and sisters, even Israelites that say Israel's over here on this side of the hemisphere. And I'm like, nah, bruh. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, this history must be taught. It must be known and understood. And I think the biggest issue when it comes to slavery is that everybody thinks that, you know, so-called FBAs, African Americans, blacks, or whatever, whose ancestry comes from Western Central Africa, which mine does, that we was complicit. We were submissive all the time. And nah, there was hundreds of slave revolts. Hundreds of slave revolts documented. So all of them are not documented, but there's hundreds that have been documented. We've been fighting since we touched foot here. From the time when they took the Igbo and they brought them over here, and those first couple of Igbo, I'm going to say a couple, but first group of Igbo slaves said, what in the world is going on? Where are we at? Nah, this is not working. While they're chained up, when they got off that ship, they backed into the water and committed suicide. They refused to live a life of chattel slavery. They're like, nah, that's not happening. But this is part of history that they keep from you, that they don't show you. And I think the biggest issue that our people who say we're native to this land, I think the biggest issue with them is like, oh, they're making us seem like we was complicit and we was quiet and we submitted. And nah. There was, of course, there's a great deal of us that was, but there was tons of slave revolts. See, the only one y'all know is Nat Turner. Y'all can't say any other slave revolts but Nat Turner's, because they don't teach you this in history. Matter of fact, let me see if I can grab a book for y'all 1 second. Hold on 1 second. All right. I'm going to show you this book. This book is called American Negro Slave Revolts by Herbert Athaker. See this? On Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabrielle, and others. Okay? Hundreds of slave revolts. See that? And I recommend y'all go get that book. Also, you can sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/Divine Prospect. We have other resources on there as well in regards to slave revolts. So that is the problem, right? Is that they don't show you this. And then also another point of history, I know a lot of us talk about 1619 was when slavery started, which is ridiculous. Whoever says that, to think that slavery started in the Western Hemisphere in 1619 is ignorant of the transatlantic slave trade. Ignorant of the transatlantic slave trade. They have no clue what they're talking about, right? And if we're going to go and be real serious, since 1619, one of the earliest slave masters was Black. That's another conversation for another day. But what I'm just saying is that there's a lot of history that we have not taught in school, a lot of history that we don't research as we get older, and a lot of times because nobody points us in the right direction. So what we do on this channel, we try to give you that information so that you can take it and you can utilize it and you can then apply the knowledge to say, hey, this is the real history behind this, this, and that. We will not be deceived. Deception is the biggest weapon that the oppressor can use to destroy who you are. That's why on this channel, we continue to push culture. Culture is the immune response to the pathogen that's called white supremacy and oppression. Because the objective of white supremacy is to remove you from your culture, give you a religion that softens you, right? That makes you receptive to white supremacists, their advances. And what winds up happening is once you lose your culture, you lose your history, you lose your identity. Once you lose these things, then you become accepting of the enculturated society, the society, well, I'll say the society that you're enculturated in, and you start to accept their morals, accept their values, right? And then over time, you just want to be a part of this society. Black people talk about reparations all the time. Oh, they always money and they always this. Yes, we do. But reparations is just not financial. Reparations is more than that. You can't give ninjas in America today millions of dollars. and think they're going to do the right thing with it. They're going to squander that money. You know why? Because they have not been mentally repaired. They have not been emotionally repaired. They have not been spiritually repaired. And without those reparations, economic reparations don't mean nothing, because they're not going to know what to do with the money. They're probably going to go and buy some Jordans. They're probably going to go and buy European designer clothing, European whips, you know what I'm saying? Or cars. This is where they're going to put their money in. They're probably going to go and invest and go live in a white neighborhood. This is what our people are going to do when you give them that money. This is what they're going to do. So when you scream reparations, and then you are anticipating and expecting your oppressor to give you money off the strength of a history that you yourself don't know all the details about. Very few of us that know all the details about that history that can warrant a discussion for why reparations is necessary for people who have not been put through an institute to reverse the PTSD that is epigenetic, that happened to our ancestors, and they passed that trauma down to us, where for the most part all we do is trauma bond, trauma dump, and we don't know that the source of this is because we have never been repaired mentally, emotionally, spiritually from all the damage that slavery has done to our ancestors that's affecting us today, and how society is rigged against us, not in our favor. So the most important thing that I recommend is that before we ask for money from the oppressor, which right now has not been given to us, conversations been had just to appease ninjas, right? They just have the conversations, have the round tables to make you think that they're going to do something. And then they say, oh, you know what? Let's give them a holiday. Let's give them Juneteenth. To be frank with y'all, Juneteenth is not a freaking holiday. I'm trying to refrain from the explicatives. But Juneteenth is not a holiday. Juneteenth is when the last I'm going to say the last. Again, let me be historically accurate. One of the last slave plantations in Galveston, Texas, received word of the Emancipation Proclamation, and that the North had won the Civil War, which really wasn't even about slavery. That was just a PR for the North. It's a whole nother conversation altogether. Slavery is heavy in Boston and other places in the North, but that's another conversation. Where they realize we free. How was that a holiday? We take Juneteenth and say culturally is ours. Now, over the years, there's been a lot of things that's been done on Juneteenth in remnants of those ancestors that was emancipated from physical slavery, where they criminalized physical slavery, but other forms of slavery were still in effect, like the convict leasing program, like the black codes, like the vagrant laws. All of these was designed post-slavery to continue to put us back into slavery, physically and then mentally. And what our ancestors did in response to that is that they became autonomous. That's why I told you the solution to our current predicament is autonomy. Autonomy is a solution to our current predicament. If we become fully autonomous, no matter where we're at, and we tell the oppressive system, we don't need your services, we don't need your welfare, okay? We don't need your EBT program. We don't need your loans, your predatory loans. And we create an internal system where it's self-sufficient, that's scalable, and we can maintain it over a course of time and create our own Goshens, because we know Yah's going to judge this place very soon. If we're able to detether from the benefits of this corporation that's working in favor of white supremacy, then we will have a leg up for what is about to come. When we create our refuge cities that we can flee to when persecution starts happening openly in the streets, and we have the means to protect and defend ourselves. That's the key word, protect and defend. Not on the offensive, not trying to topple the government, right, with arms, that some of these revolutionary groups tell you to do. We're going to topple the government. You're going to topple the government with what? Did you just see what Trump did to Iran? See those strikes that they did on those nuclear sites in Iran? You have that type of weaponry? You think a white supremacist oppressive system is going to empower you with the billions of dollars that they do with Israel to arm up against them? You don't think that they have surveillance that trumps anything you can get on the consumer market? As I talk right now, I'm voluntarily giving information to the internet, right? But if they wanted to, they could send a drone to spy on me. That drone can be thousands of feet up in the air, and I would never know it's there. They can get a heat signature. They can get a voice signature. They can record from that distance what I'm saying. And you telling me that you're going to pick up some arms and overthrow the government? See, these black supremacist groups will have you thinking that they're about to go to war with this nation. As if you're not going to have your own people work against you from doing that. That's number one. Because black people want this society. We want this American dream. We desire it. Black people love it. We've been fully integrated into the system to the point when you talk to most elders that live through the 60s and 70s struggle, they're like, yo, we tried it already, so I'm just trying to live right now. They don't want you to disrupt their peace. So if they see a ninja saying we about to go to war, they're going to do the oppressor's work for him and talk him down or get in the way. As if your organizations is not already infiltrated by CIA, FBI. If you're really a threat, CIA, FBI has already infiltrated your organization. They're going to work from within to stop you from doing what you said you're going to do. Now, I've talked about this tons of times on the internet, on my channel, on other channels I was a guest on, and how you can foolproof your organization from infiltration. Infiltration is going to happen, whether it's direct or indirect. When I say direct, that means they have a program with the FBI and other governmental agencies that identify you as a possible threat who wants to topple over the government by force with weapons and arms. They have a whole file on you, and they go send an agent that look like you in your organization. Or it can happen indirectly. We have agent provocateurs that's within your own organization, within your own community, that's going to work against you to prevent you from doing that. So infiltration is going to happen if it has not already happened. So if infiltration is already going to happen, how do you stifle infiltration? Transparency. That's number one. Transparency. Number two, with the day ones, before new faces come in, you have your own language. You code your language. Code it. Number three, you cause the infiltrators to expose themselves. And there's ways that you can kind of squeeze them out. This is things that are done in military intelligence all the time across the seas. There's actually on the Patreon, I have a couple of books that tell you how to do this. But these ninjas that's talking about they're going to overthrow the government with arms and weapons and stuff, they're not familiar with this. So if they're not familiar with this, they're thinking they're actually going to do something. You're not going to do nothing. We are underpowered to wage a full-scale war, especially a war of attrition, over time This is not going to happen in one day. You think you're going to topple a government in one day? What are y'all? Y'all Rangers? Y'all Green Berets? Yeah, y'all ain't got that type of skill set. Now, Green Berets have toppled governments. Rangers have contributed to that as well. Y'all not built like that. So overthrowing the government with arms is not the way to wage a revolution in 2025. The way to wage a revolution in 2025 is through autonomy. Black people contribute $1.9 billion to this economy every year. 1.9 billion. Am I saying it right? Is it billion or trillion? I think it's billion. Let me confirm. Let me find out. Let me confirm. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's $1.98 trillion. My bad. Trillion. $1.98 trillion. So if you take $1.98 trillion, here, let me share a link for y'all so you can take a look at it. If you take $1.98 trillion, what do you think we're going to be able to do with that money? If that money's put in autonomy, that's how much money we take away from this system. If you take $1.98 trillion away from the American economy, you will destroy it. The boycotts in the 50s and 60s put a kill on the American economy. That is how you got the civil rights movement started. Boycotting. Ninjas today ain't boycotting nothing because they've already got us to integrate into society and desire the things in society that is not us. That's why we want foreign everything. Your music influences it. Your social media influences it. We want foreign everything. European everything. That's where the value system is at. Not the stuff that we create. We say, oh, we'll support Black businesses. Okay, you support Black businesses, but where are the funds for those Black businesses going? Right into those Black business pockets. And they're just using it to feed their family. It ain't going towards no revolution. It ain't going towards no change for this society as we know it, that disenfranchises us, that's not inclusive of us at the upper echelons of the round tables that sat down and discussed on how we're going to socially engineer society. We're not up there with the Trilateral Commissions. We're not up there with the Bilderbergers. We're not up there with them. So all these Black dollars that we circulate within our community, it's okay for it to feed people's families. I'm not saying that it shouldn't. I'm saying a portion of it has to go towards a revolution. The revolution has to be autonomy. We have to create our own community currency. When you create your own community currency, you devalue the dollar within your community. When you devalue the dollar within your community, then that increases the value of whatever medium that you're using for exchange. And when you're able to do that, then people in your community will be less likely to deal with the dollar. So until we set up these refuge cities, until we set up our Goshens, we have not accomplished any kind of revolution. That's the only thing that's going to work. So let me show you this on this website that I pulled up. I like going to this website. This is blackwallstreet.org. I go to this site all the time, right? Let me show this to you. Because they break down what we spend. Now I'm going to show you this. Watch this. Watch this. Hold on one second. Let me share this with y'all. Take a look at this. Let me zoom in. No, it's not letting me. All right. So this is what we spend. This is the Black Spending Index by industry, right? The biggest industries that you see there is beauty and personal care, which makes up mostly women, media and entertainment, and apparel and footwear. That makes up over 50% of where we put our money in. I'm going to say that again. Education is only 8%. Health and wellness is only 12%. Technology is only 10%. We put the majority of our money in beauty and personal care, media and entertainment, and apparel and footwear. That's where Ninjas is going to be investing that reparations money when they get it. That's where it's going. Y'all see that? Mr. Marco Perkins, peace and shalom to you, my brother. The link should be in the description below. Let me confirm. Hold on. Let me confirm. I think it's in the description below. Let's see. Let me confirm. Yeah, it's in the description below, brother. It's Crochet Kufis 2.0. You'll see it there in the description below. Appreciate that. That is done in-house. My wife makes these in-house. Right? Again, autonomy. That's part of autonomy. Right? While our manufacturing and assembly happens within the home. Right? Until we get a factory. Right? So anyway, this is where Negroes is spending their money. See that? Beauty and personal care. Now, most of this beauty and personal care encompasses products from other nations, not our own products. See, they hold the standard. They advertise and promote the standard on media, and we want to meet that criteria of beauty. So we buy the products that they tell us to buy. Black women put their hair in their head so they can look like another ethnic group, right? We get the skin lightening or skin bleaching products so we can be lighter. That way we can be more accepted. And we get all of this makeup and all of this extra stuff. Now, I'm not saying makeup is bad. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the amount of money women invest in makeup is bad. And I'm showing you, we have $1.98 trillion and over 50% of it goes into beauty and personal care. Then media and entertainment. Now, media and entertainment could be a good thing if we use it for a revolutionary cause. It can, if we create our own content. But this is not us creating our own content. This is the amount of consumption we put into content that relates to the world. We put in. So we're funding these movies. We're funding these TV shows. We're funding these documentaries. We're funding these things. We're not creating independent stations, independent channels. The best we can do is YouTube, but guess what? YouTube is not even owned by us. So at any given time, YouTube can shut this channel down and shut other channels down. But all the money that we're getting, that we're earning, and if you look in regards to the median household income for African Americans, it is almost poverty levels. But we find a way to get some money to go and use it to consume media and entertainment. And then the rest of it is on apparel and footwear. That is not Black owned, Black manufactured, Black created. But it's that's given us from the oppressor. If I was to show you a map of how much we spend on Nikes and Jordans, yo would lose your mind. But that's what's going on. This is what we're doing. So the things we should put money in is travel, because when you leave outside of the United States, you get to find out that the United States ain't what you think it is. These other nations that the U.S. is going to war with ain't as bad as they making it seem. You get to see that there's a world outside. You get to appreciate culture. You get to have a wider palette in regards to food and other people's customs and respect and dignity of other people. It enhances your palette of acceptance for indigenous cultures to see how they're being ravaged by the industrial industry. The deforestation of the Congo and the Amazon. You get to meet these people on the ground and see the struggles that they're facing. Your empathy increases for other peoples outside of just the bubble of America. Education, where we have to begin to educate and self-educate our children. We have to encourage autodidacts in our community. When we see that there's a focus that our child has on something in particular, and they're able to self-learn in this society because they got the tools now that we never had, we have to encourage that. The system that they're using for education today is not educating us to be revolutionaries, to think outside the box. It's not. But we only spend 8% on education. This channel is purely education. And I know it's not that popular because I don't make content to appease to the media and entertainment that the masses usually consume. This is going to cause you to think critically about your religion, about your culture, about your history, about social studies today, about our society today, to examine these things, to evaluate these things, to use the crap method and others in order to authenticate sources. I take what I learned and I give it to y'all, the spook that sat by the door. So real independence comes through the form of autonomy. Unless you're autonomous, you should not be celebrating no Independence Day. Until we can examine the mistakes and errors that our ancestors made and make it right to prevent that visitation to the third and fourth generation. A lot of y'all are suffering today because of that visitation upon the third and fourth generation. I know a lot of that fell on my lap because of my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. They got caught up in society and the things of society because they knew no better. They were ignorant. Some of them knew some better, but because of so much oppression, was unable to fulfill what they were called to do. So now I have to take that burden. Y'all got to take that burden so that it does not pass on to our children. If Yah's going to visit us, he's going to visit us seeing that we are loving him. We are keeping his statute, laws, and commandments. We are accepting the precepts of his son. That we are creating an autonomous society so that we are prepared for when he judges, we have our self-sustaining Goshens. We are ready to meet the king. But a lot of us are not ready. You're not trying to destroy any what's called, and I just keep it what I'm saying, any visitations from Yah. People call it generational curses. A lot of y'all don't want to do that and wondering why your children are suffering, wondering why our society is suffering. We have to own up to it. For example, and this is something I've taught for some time, but I've never done a formal lecture, and I know y'all want it, is formulate prayer according to the way our ancestors prayed. Whenever our ancestors prayed, the righteous ones, they prayed for Yah to forgive the sins of their ancestors first. Because a lot of them are dead and they can't ask for forgiveness. A lot of them are dead and they can't repent. So it falls upon us. So we have to tell Yah, our ancestors failed us, Yah. They did the best they could do with what they had. Yah, forgive them, Yah. Yah, do not take the consequences of their sins and continue to allow it to fall upon us. We pray that you will remove their weight from off of us, Yah. And we give it to you, Yah. Examine us, purge us from anything that we have learned from our ancestors. The things that cause us to be reprobate against you. The good stuff, Yah, cultivate it. The bad stuff, Yah, weed it out. Uproot it. Take it out. Give us a clean slate, Yah. If you in your prayers don't pray for Yah to forgive your ancestors, you ain't praying right. And this is why Yah ain't hearing your prayers. Because that very thing that you asking Yah for, because of something your ancestor did, is stifling that for you today. They may be dead in the grave, but their consequences is still living on. Some of y'all ain't hearing me. Some of y'all ain't listening. So what I'm saying to you is this. Before we can start any kind of revolution, this chart got to change, bro. $1.98 trillion, they got to change. And not only do we pray for our ancestors, because this is the way it is, we got to pray for our people who are still alive today, that they wake up, that the scales from their eyes are going to fall off. But understand that the reality is most of us will never change. So we ask y'all to wake up the remnant, and for the remnant that's awoken to come together. That's the key thing. Okay. All right. We'll get it one day. We'll get it one day. But in regards to this Independence Day, this has nothing to do with us at all. Nothing to do with us. Now, one thing that I will say, segueing away from that, is that this Sunday is the F3 Fringe Upfest. All right? Let me show it to you. I don't know if anybody is aware of it. Maybe those here in Atlanta. Some of you also may be aware of it. But it's the F3 Fringe Upfest. The reason why I support the F3 Fringe Upfest is because this is part of Autonomy. It is here to upend July 4th celebration. So y'all Israelites don't get tempted to want to do celebrations in honor of a holiday that has nothing to do with y'all. I ain't saying y'all can't go to the family cookout. I'm not saying it. If y'all want to go to the family cookout, that's fine. Enjoy your family, enjoy your friends. That's all up to you, right? This society's Sabbath is July 4th. That's their Sabbath. That's their day of rest. Their holidays are their Sabbaths. Yah has given us Sabbaths. But if it was up to me, I would continue to work on every one of the world's Sabbaths. They're secular Sabbaths. I cared nothing about Christmas. I cared nothing about Thanksgiving. I care nothing about Easter, even though mostly that's on a Sunday. I care nothing about these things. July 4th, I care nothing about July 4th. I respect other people's, the reasons why they want to celebrate it. I respect that. That's fine. But that's not me and my household, bro. I'm just letting you know. So when we have things in our community that is here to promote business within our community, we're learning precepts for a sustainable economy within our Goshens. Let me pull it up. And this is important. So this teaches us kingdom etiquette. I say that all the time. A lot of y'all think you're ready to meet the king, but he's going to sit you down at that table and see how you respond to that. Let's get scripture for that, because some of y'all don't understand what I mean. Let's get that. Let's get Matthew chapter 22. Let me pull this up real quick. And then, like I said, I'm going to show y'all that Intertextual Bible, Bible study resource that's free online. I'm going to show y'all how I use it. But let's go here first. I want to show you this. I know a lot of y'all want to chant down Babylon. Y'all come and destroy Babylon. Thermonuclear warfare. That's it. Y'all saying all this type of stuff. But before all that happens, guess what? You still got Jacob's trouble to go through, bro. And if you're not prepared, then you may get caught up in that thermonuclear fire. Thermonuclear nukes coming and destroying America. Some of y'all say that. Some of y'all preach that, right? But let me show you this, man. Let me show you this. All right. All praise to the Most High for using his servant, Yeshua Bar Yosef, to give us this message here. I'm going to share it with y'all. Let's go over this real quick. And again, Yeshua spoke to them in parables, saying, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding feast for his son and sent his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding feast, but they would not come. Yah is calling his people to wake up. Come out of her, my people. Be in the world, but not of the world. What does all that mean? Does that mean, I got to run away from America? No. You ain't got to run away from America. If you want to leave, that's fine. But what it's saying is create some form of autonomy to shield you against the influences of this destructive society that's designed to oppress you. How are you shielding yourself against the advances of white supremacy, against your oppression and your destruction? The society loves to lure away your kids, get them to value things greater than what you teach them, to create this divide and this generational gap. This is what they want to do. They want to teach the youth that your parents don't understand you. They want to teach the youth, oh, that culture and religion stuff, that stuff is not for you. It's not going to help advance you. It's not going to, they want to train your children at a young age for this stuff. So you can still be in America, and I tell you all the time, Yah said he's going to gather his people from the four corners of the earth. That means some of us are going to be here. If you want to flee, go ahead. But you fleeing is not going to advance prophecy. It's not. And you think you're going to escape the grips of white supremacy by going to Africa, by going to Europe, by going to South America? All these nations are indebted to the Western powers. If they want you, they can get you. So you're not running away from anything. If anything, you need to know how to take care of self. A man that has control of his own self is greater than a man that has conquered the whole entire city. The conquering of self is the biggest battle, because you're going to bring that self with you no matter where you go. You're going to bring that mindset with you no matter where you go. Okay. Then he says, again, he sent other servants saying, tell those who are invited, see, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen and my fat calves have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding feast. But they paid no attention and went off, one to his farm, another to his business. And that's what Negroes are going to do. Yah is waking us up with all the stuff that's happening in society today. The Diddy case and trial that y'all watching, Trump's administration and all the decisions that he's doing, all the stuff that's happening, the celebrity gossip. We are becoming more conscious people now. But that consciousness is not driving most of us towards Yah. Society is putting a buffet and say, pick what you want, giving us all these flavors of consciousness. Okay. All right. When it comes that time that we have to wake up, someone's going to say, oh, shoot, you know what? I got to go get my Jordans, yo. Yo, you know what? I got to go and get my makeup and my wigs. You know what? I got that black business that's over there on 7 out a little 5 points. Let me go over there and tend to my business. Oh, you know what? Damn, the new NBA 2K game just dropped. Yo, I gotta go and play that real quick, and then I'll come. This is the excuses that Negroes gonna do. These are excuses. According to that chart, that's where our investments are. So if you've invested in that, of course you're gonna go back and say, let me protect my investment. Let me get the most of my investment. So then it goes on to say, while the rest seized his servants, treated them shamefully, and killed them. The king was angry, and he sent his troops and destroyed those murderers and burned their city. Then he said to his servants, the wedding feast is ready, but those invited were not worthy. You see that? The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. I tell Yah, listen, I'm not striving for any kind of fame, fortune, or anything. Give me bread which is sufficient for me. Have me carry out the will and the capacity that you call me to do. I don't want to do no more than what I was called to do. So the ones who was initially invited, the ones that had that zeal before you did, the ones that had the passion, desire, and the fervor, and then you see over time that flame just extinguishes. And now they're in the world doing whatever. This is not a race of the strongest. This is a race of those who know how to persevere and endure hardships and persecutions. A lot of people can't stand 10 toes down on business when it comes to Yah's kingdom, because there's so much affliction that comes this way through the narrow gate. The wide gate is compromises, but that narrow gate, yeah, it's the thing that's going to sift people out. So then it goes on and says, go therefore to the main roads and invite to the wedding feast as many as you can find. And those servants went out into the roads and gathered all whom they found, both bad and good. So the wedding hall was filled with guests. And I tell you all the time, stop preaching to the choir. Our people out there, bring those lost sheep in. It was a saying somebody shared with me, that Yeshua sat with sinners, but didn't sin along with them. See, I tell you all the time, when they ask me through counseling, Devon, how do I know if I should keep this family member around? How should I know if I should keep this friend around? And I say to them, who's influencing who the most? Is your lifestyle convicting and influencing them? Or is their lifestyle influencing and convicting you? Who looks like who the most when y'all around each other? And if your influence is greater than the influence of your peers, of your associates, friends, co-workers, family, then you're doing the right thing. You're actually going and bringing these people in so that they can get to know Yah. His fame, his reputation, and his character is on the line. With the way you live your life demonstrates that. And when I go back over what's called the 10 Commandments, I showed y'all when it says, do not take the Lord thy God's name in vain. He will not hold you guiltless to those who do that. That word there, do not hold the Lord's name in vain. Do not carry his reputation in emptiness. That means don't make empty his reputation because you are living a lifestyle contrary to what you preach in. Let's keep going. But when the king came in to look at the guests, he saw there was a man who had no wedding garment. And he said to him, friend, how did you get in here without a wedding garment? And he was speechless. And the kid said to the attendants, bind him hand and foot and cast him into the outer darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. Now, here's the thing. When people preach a Jesus, that's a hippie Jesus, right? Peace, love, kumbaya, come to me. However you are, I'm going to accept you anyway. They want to read these things that Jesus was teaching. The real Jesus said, then the king said to his attendants, this is what the kingdom of heaven is going to be like. Bind him hand and foot and cast him into outer darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. They understood that to be something serious. This ain't no bubble gum and roses Jesus. This is Yeshua, Hamashiach, or Yeshua Bar Yosef, the apocalyptic preacher from Nazareth, as he's known historically. Telling you, this is what the kingdom of heaven is going to be compared to. If you don't know the kingdom etiquette, you're going to be cast out. Learn kingdom etiquette. This man did not have the proper garments on to sit before the king at the banquet. Some of y'all think you're going to get in there any old kind of way. Don't work like that, bro. Sorry. I'm just the messenger. Showing you what it is. And this is not to say, when I say this, I'm not telling you don't have no diplomacy intact when dealing with the world. It's okay to interface with the world with diplomacy intact. But it's all based on the premise, your core foundation of why you're interacting with the world. Yes, we're human. Yes, we have things that we like. Yes, we have hobbies and things that we relate to. That's fine. But where's the priority at? That's the key thing. Have you prioritized what Yah told us to prioritize? Is the kingdom mindset at the forefront of what you do each and every day? And you're not always going to draw people with hard preaching and the Most High going to destroy. No. You got to use tact. Yah says, through loving kindness have I drawn thee. Yeshua says, if somebody takes you a mile, go an extra mile with him. A lot of y'all don't understand that. But then there's some of y'all that do. The ones that don't, I pray this convicts you. So wherever you at right now, and a lot of y'all getting ready for them cookouts, so family cookouts, because it's July 4th, ask yourself, when I'm at these cookouts, am I employing tact so I can talk and I can engage? And through my tact, am I able to influence those who's around me? Are they influenced by the way I walk, by the way I talk, by the way I live? Is it influencing them? Or when people come to this cookout and they see me there, it's like I'm just like everybody else. Do I stand out? You got to ask yourself this. This is not a race for the weak. Okay. All right. All praise to the Most High. All praise to the Most High. We almost on 1 hour. All right, let me see. I see you have some questions. So you know what? Let me I'll answer the questions, and then I'm gonna end off, right, with showing you the Intertextual Bible. All right, let me see what these questions are. So I'm scrolling back up. I see, you said you're from Germany and you need to connect with some brothers. All right, so you can email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. If you're watching this on the replay, all the contact information is always in the description below, just so that everybody's aware. All our contact information is in the description below. If you want to patronize this ministry so that we can use these funds to go towards things that we just discussed today, like think tanking, setting up these refuge cities, these autonomous enclaves, so that we have some place to go to be sustained and to provide resources today, programs and services to alleviate the societal ills that we experience and bring us closer as a close-knit community before Yah, using a rooted culture that safeguards us from the advances of white supremacy and the oppression from outside of our community. This is where the funding goes towards. And the way that we reach the people is that we fix their problems. And then they say, well, when? Why are you doing this? And we point them out. Let your light so shine so that men may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. When Yah visits my household, he gonna be like, job well done. Can he say that about you? When he visits your household, is he gonna say job well done? Because at some point he's gonna visit, if he hasn't already done that, visit you in your house and say, oh, why are these things happening to me? Why does this happen? Because you ain't pray to Yah, appeal to Yah for the sins of your ancestors. So you may pray for the stuff that you did, but you're not praying for the stuff that they did that's fallen as a consequence on you that Yah's visiting. So because you have not removed that element, Yah's still judging that. You see that? Yah's going to judge not the stuff that you just did, but the things your ancestors did. So because you don't pray for that removal of what they've done, he's still visiting that. You're like, why is this happening? Why is this? Why is that? Because he's visiting that consequence. He's visiting that decision that they made 50, 60, 70 years ago that's now impacting you today. And you ain't prayed away. So he's visiting that. It ain't you, it's that. All right, let me behave myself. Let me recollect myself. Let's get back to these questions here. All right, let's see. So yeah, all the contact information is down below. All right. All right, let me see. Let me see. Questions. Thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been not only just saying this for years, I've been giving out a blueprint. We got a whole playlist to show y'all how to get busy. Right. So we're not just telling you stuff and speaking in theory. We're actually showing the work that we've done, what some of our chapters are doing, what we're doing here in Atlanta, and how you can do the same thing. Everything can be replicated. Don official, shalom, my brother. You said, what's the correct way or correct name to call Christ? I don't know if I'm gonna say correct. If you want to be historically accurate, Jesus is an English word that comes from the Latin, and the Latin comes from the Greek, and the Greek comes from the Hebrew. Well, comes from the Aramaic, that comes from the Hebrew. So you have Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, Latin, and then English, which is part of the vulgar Latin languages. Okay. So if you want to be historically accurate, his Hebrew, his name in the first century CE, which is Aramaic Yeshua, comes from the Hebrew Yehoshua, Yehoshua, which means Yah is my salvation, or Yah's salvation, right? But he was called Yeshua. He was called his current name that we say Jesus in the first century CE. It was Aramaic, more than likely the Galilean dialect of Aramaic. And he would have had the name Yeshua, which would have been the common nomenclature for Jews of the first century CE who colloquially spoke Aramaic. So he would have been called Yeshua, and he would have been known Yeshua bar Yosef, Yeshua son of Joseph, right? That would have been how he would have been historically known. A person's surname is based on who their father is. So Yeshua bar Yosef. So that would have been his historical name walking around. And or they also not, that may not be enough, because you may have tons of people that's named Yeshua bar Yosef, but then it's also where you're from. So this is Yeshua from Nazareth. So Yeshua from Nazareth, whose mother is Miriam, whose brothers and sisters are so-and-so, whose father is Joseph, right? This is how people are known in the past. Today is a little different because we have different technology. But historically, he would have been called Yeshua, which would have been Aramaic, because that was the colloquial tongue of that time. Now, did some people have Hebrew names at that time? Yes, but Hebrew was not a colloquially spoken language at that time. Hebrew was mostly reserved for liturgical purposes. So people knew Hebrew by going to the synagogue, by going to the temple, by interfacing with the priests and the scribes who would have known the language. And they would have used it for ritualistic purposes, for doxological purposes, meaning for worship type purposes, for hymns and songs and blessings. They would have known Hebrew. But everyday speech would have been Aramaic. And some of them, depending on what their trade was, knew some Greek. But most of them did not know Greek. They had to use translators. So hopefully that answers your question. So when you said the correct way to call him, I mean, his historical name would have been Yeshua bar Yosef. Some say Yeshua HaMashiach. Hamacha is the definite article in Hebrew. Mashiach means Messiah in Hebrew, but more than likely it would have been the Aramaic flavor. If you're going to say HaMashiach, then you have to really pair it with his Hebrew name, right? Which is Yehoshua, right? Or some say Yahoshua, right? So hopefully that helps. Christ is Christos in the Greek, Christos. So some say Christos. You can say that. I mean, my particular flavor is calling him Yeshua bar Yosef, because that's his historical name. That's what he would have been called growing up. His parents would have called him that. His friends, associates would have called him that, right? Yeshua would be the first name in which his disciples would have called, right? The people knew him as being from Nazareth, as being the son of Joseph, the son of Mary, right? They would have known him by these titles and these names. So hopefully that gives some insight, right, in regards to that. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Dwayne Reese. I appreciate that. Yes, sir. Whooping feet. It's my brother. Y'all look up Whooping Feet. Hey, yo, TX Mando, share those details in the chat, man, so brothers can support what you got going on. I love it. Anytime, my brother. If you need more information on that in regards to the name on the Patreon, you can just type in name in the search field, and you'll see all these resources coming up in regards to the name. I think I have one on there about Yeshua as well, right? I do have one on there kind of giving you the background on it. But I think there's one on there with Yeshua as well. So again, like I mentioned in the beginning, for some of y'all who are just now coming in, most of the stuff that I discussed, the resources for this is on our Patreon, www.patreon.com/Divine Prospect. Sign up for our Patreon. We have tons of content on there, exclusive videos. We have language courses on there for Aramaic, for Hebrew, for Greek, for Ugaritic, for Arabic, for all types of languages we have on there. We have exclusive videos, exclusive content that's not here on YouTube. We have resources, books, articles that's on there. We have free items that we share, website suggestions where we tell you where you can get free things, and or we give you the link for our paid access to websites that you typically won't have access to unless you join one of these academic societies, right? We have tons of resources, over 1,200 posts that are on there that give you a wealth of knowledge. It's a repository of information for our community to empower themselves. If you need a blueprint for revolution, we have it on there. We have everything on the Patreon, right? I continue to steadily build up the Patreon, add more and more content, more and more resources on it. If anything ever happens to me, God forbid, right? Just sign up for the Patreon and just get everything that's on there, right? If anything ever happens to me, it's a repository of all that information in case anything happens to me. The stuff I was telling you earlier about military intelligence and how to root out infiltration, I have all that documentation on there as well. Everything's on there. Everything is on there, right? Let me see. I have a question, brother. If a man has 2 wives and they are all romantically with each other, is that a sin? When you say, wait, when you say they're all romantically with each other, are you saying like the 2 wives also are like romantically intimate and involved with one another? Is that what you're saying, brother? I'm trying to understand what you mean when you say romantically with each other. Not the man with each individual wife, but you're saying the 2 wives are also romantically involved. All right. When you say romantically involved, are you mean like the same way the attraction is between a male and female naturally? The 2 women have it towards each other, but they're in a union with this man. And you're asking, is that proper protocol? So to answer that question, I would say no. If the 2 women are romantically involved with each other like they are with the man, then that is not a biblically sanctioned union, according to scripture. Because man is not to treat or deal with a man like he would with a woman. A woman should not lie with another woman like she lied with a man. A man should not lie with another man like he lied with a woman. So if the 2 women are intimate, the 2 women are sleeping with each other, then that is not a biblically sanctioned union. Because the key thing is this. When it comes to Hebrew, right, you have the word ra, which means evil, and the word tov, that means good. Well, what is good and what is evil? Good is the things that Yah designed to be functional when in unison with one another. For example, when he created man and woman, he created them to be echad, to be one. The man has features, functions, and capabilities. The woman has features, functions, and capabilities. And when they come together, it creates a proper functional union. Okay? Ra, evil, what can mean evil. Ra can mean dysfunction. Anything that's Ra is something that's dysfunctional, something that is being forced to function that is not inherent in its original design. So the original design is not for woman to be with woman, because when you have a union naturally, right, there are parts of the genitalia that fit with one another, the way they're designed. If you don't have those same parts fitting together the way they're designed, that is dysfunction. And if it's dysfunction, it is not sanctioned. So things that God naturally designed to be functional when put together is biblically sanctioned. Anything that happens otherwise is not. For example, when he commands us to obey statute, laws, and commandments, this is how you can have a functional society. This is how you can have a functional relationship with the Creator, by obeying what he has commanded you to do. When you disobey what he has commanded you to do, you will have a dysfunctional society and a dysfunctional relationship. So the important thing to note for this, and this is one thing I say, polygyny ain't for everybody. I'm an advocate for polygyny, but the reason why I don't preach it a lot is because I'm not currently practicing it. When I currently practice it and I have a functional design, a functional application, and a functional implementation of it for years, then I will speak on it. But you have brothers that's out here that is preaching this, and they have dysfunctional relationships at home. They have these type of relationships where the women are sexually involved with one another, and the man is playing a voyeur, watching that, encouraging that. In functional polygyny, the women have their separate spaces. Men can't provide that today. So when he has this wife with these children, this wife with these children, he is able to provide separate quarters and chambers for these individuals. When you study the text from this abstract literary form, and you study text from its concrete form within its ancient Near Eastern background, this is how this is situated. So financially, if a man can't have those separate quarters where those type of temptations, which should never even be there in the first place, but they don't happen, that means he is not doing it correctly. He's not able to provide that. You can't. And if he diminishes what is provision for one wife to accommodate the other, or vice versa, then he is doing it incorrectly. So if a man sees that situation as occurring, that is a problem. That is a dysfunctional union. And these brothers out here preaching polygyny, and they're teaching it the wrong way. A lot of them have no accountability, and it does not reflect the way it is optimally practiced in the ancient Near East by means of the Israelite culture. So I would say stay away from that. That's not for you. Everybody can't handle it. It's not applicable to every situation. I would say only in certain cases is that still applicable today within our community. And again, this is coming from an advocate of it. So we have to be aware of these things, because these temptations can cause our people to fall into additional dysfunctional practices. Let me give you a good example. In Ezekiel chapter 16, Yah said the reason why he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah was because of inhospitality. But when we go back and we read Genesis chapter 19, and we see that Lot is taking those two men, those two angels, messengers, into his household, and then eventually the men of the town come, press to the door, and they want to get those men inside who are visitors and know them. Well, the root cause is not homosexuality. That's not the issue. That is a cascade effect from the root cause. The root cause is in hospitality. You're going to say, Devon, what are you talking about? Let me show you. It's very easy. In Genesis 18, when those three entities passed by Abraham's tent, where him and his family was at, he rushed towards them and entreated them to come to his community so they can take care of them. That is the optimal response to seeing strangers by your gate or near your tent setup. Why? Because in ancient times, they didn't have bikes, they didn't have cars, they didn't have jets. So they travel mostly by foot. And if you could afford it, you travel by a camel, you can travel by a mule, you can travel by a horse. It was very rare. But most people walked, which means you're tired, you're famished, and you're in the hot, arid sun. So You're entreated to come in, so your feet can get washed. Why? Because there's gravel and sediment that's in your sandals. So your feet are washed, you're fed, and you're given a place to stay overnight so that you can continue on your way the next day. That is typical hospitality. When those two messengers came to Sodom, where Lot was at, he was the only one at the gate to invite them into his household. No one else from the entire town was by the gate, which means they had a lack of hospitality. They were inhospitable. And what happens when you are inhospitable? You're inhospitable because of selfishness. You say, well, I shouldn't have to do that. That is not my responsibility. That is not my obligation. I don't want to do that. I only want what's in it for me. See, Lot learned his hospitality from his uncle and possibly his father. This is what Yah judges Israel based on how they treat the poor, the oppressed, the stranger, and the widow. So what tends to happen is inhospitality becomes the root cause of your selfish, inordinate desires, which lust is. An inordinate desire, a dysfunctional desire. So when that happens, it then mutates into other things, which is if it's all about me, I want to now have dominance over other grown men. I want to know those men in that camp so I can be in control. It starts to mutate into other things, but it's not the root cause. When you don't treat the root cause, then the symptoms are going to keep coming back. It's the same way with things that we struggle with today. I'm no exception. We all struggle with something. It's because we have not discovered the root cause. Until we address the root cause, the symptoms are going to keep coming back. Same with cancer. People think, oh, I got chemo. Cancer's gone. It's undetectable. Oh, I had surgery and they cut it out. Well, that's not the root cause. The root cause is a mutation in P38 protein within your nucleus. That's one of the many root causes, or mitochondrial dysfunction or hypoxia. How do you fix those things at a microcellular level? Until you take care of that, the symptoms are going to keep coming back. So when we understand these things and we try to find a way to understand what is tov, what is good before Yah, it's the things that are functional. Your relationship with Yah should not be purely transactional. If it's purely transactional, he's going to deal with you transactionally. Well, what do you mean by that? We getting deep. I got a separate short video lined up for that, but I'll give you a little bit here, and then we're gonna transition out. A transaction relationship is always an exchange, not the type of exchange that builds relational relationships, but one is I'm in it for me. I'm only gonna come to you when it benefits me. It's always short-term and not long-term relationships, interactions. A transactional is when you come to Yah and say, Yah, I need this. So I'm going to do this for you if you do this for me. That's your relationship with Yah, right? So then Yah is going to respond back and say, okay, I will do this for you if you do this for me. Now, what happens with that is that the things that Yah desires of you to do, you're always going to fall short. But you think, okay, well, if I need Yah now, I'm going to do this for him so he can do that for me. Like you're doing him a favor. How you do Yah favors? You can't do him no solids. It don't work like that. So what happens with that is because you don't have that relationship with him, when he asks you to do something and you fail to do it, guess what? Part of that transaction relationship is that there's consequences. And because you don't know him and he don't know you, there's no grace and mercy to cushion you when you fail to live up to your part of what you promised to do. But when you have a relational relationship, and like I said all the time, you seek his face and not his hand, then what's in his hand, he'll give it to you because you're seeking his face. That's a byproduct of the relational relationship. It's not transaction. So when you understand this, you know that in order for me to have a relationship with Yah, I got to talk to him. I got to communicate with him. And not just one way. You say, Yah, what's on your heart today, Yah? What's on your mind today, Yah? How you feeling today, Yah? What pleases you? What displeases you? What can I do to please you, Yah? What can I do to make your day for all that you've done for me? What little things you want me to say? What little things you want me to do? Let me speak gently towards you. Let me speak lovingly towards you, Yah. Let me be affectionate towards you, Yah. Let me get into your word and put it upon my heart so you can put it on my mind and my soul, Yah. Let me empty all that I am and allow you to fill me with whatever you want, Yah. That's how the relationship should go. And some of y'all have a transaction relationship with Yah and wondering why things are going to hell. Things are not working out. Things don't seem to be long-term, but there's always short-term blessings that you're receiving because you only act the part to get what you want at that time. It's a momentary relationship. Okay. I don't know. I'm gonna fall back right there. Let's go ahead and transition. I think I shared too much in here today. I'm gonna go ahead and transition. So let me say this. I may be on this YouTube channel called The Saint sometime soon. And I'll probably save that for another live stream because I'm about to close out. I only want to do an hour and a half at most today. But I may be on that channel soon. So it's going to be heads up now. I'll add some stuff in the community tab in the post section. There'll be some stuff up there that you can check out if I am. So I can give you a heads up. And there's a reason for that. Brother put me on to that. So I'm going to go and see what that's about. So I don't have time to really go into that today, do commentary into that today, which I intended. All right, let me, I see you're asking questions and I don't want anybody's question to go unanswered. So let me do this. I'm going to try to do this real quick. Shalom Divine, how did Yahweh bring you into the truth? Have you ever been an atheist? All right. So I've never been an atheist, but I've been an agnostic. So I was raised in the church in holiness, non-denominational church. From birth, I guess, all the way up until, I think when I was 18, I really didn't care nothing for it, but I still was living with my mom. My mom said, if you're going to live here, one of the prerequisites to dwelling and having this as your domicile is that you have to go to church. So I went to church. When I got old enough to move out and lived on my own, I was agnostic, which means I didn't say there wasn't a God. I just didn't care about that at all. Like that wasn't a priority of mine. I had already had life choices, life decisions, life goals, and plans that I already had for my life. Had nothing to do with Yah. It was what I wanted to do for myself. And I lived that way for about, from the time I moved out my mom's house to the time that I started to get into this information, had to be about 5 years, at least 5 years. I was agnostic. 4 or 5 years I was agnostic, right? But then one day when I was at work, I was watching a documentary, and the documentary that I watched was called Zeitgeist. And when I watched on Zeitgeist, where they was talking about the microchip, and it was talking about how religion was used to control, and 9/11 and all this stuff, I said, whoa, that stuff sounds kind of similar to the stuff that I've been exposed to about the book of Revelation. So I was like, let me go back to the book of Revelation and do some research in this. So I did some research. I was watching videos because at the job I was working, I was a software support specialist, but we had a lot of time on our hands because we wasn't interacting with clients a lot in a certain period of time. So I was able to watch like tons of YouTube videos while I was on the clock getting paid. It was great, right? So I watched that. I went back to the book of Revelation and I said, whoa, this book is talking a lot about things that are happening today. Even though Zeitgeist was designed to kind of show you how religion is a form of mass control, population control, etc., it was making sense. I was like, well, Revelation is showing how the religious system is used to control us and how there's going to be a mark of the beast, and they're talking about a microchip. So I started putting things together. I was like, yo, this is deep. I said, look, I got to get more understanding on this book of Revelation. So I said, look, let me go back to the church that I was raised in. and see if, if they have a Bible study on it, because I'm not going to church. I'm not going to service or nothing like that. I just want to go to Bible study and ask mad questions and learn, right? Because I was a skeptic, but I also was a critical thinker and I love to learn, right? So I started going to Bible study, and the interesting thing is they was finishing up the book of John and going right into the book of Revelation. So I was learning a lot of stuff, right? But this congregation believed in the rapture, and this congregation was oneness. So a lot of those doctrines, like, I was exposed to, and I started to pick up. But Revelation, I was interested in eschatology and how it related to current events today. And that brought me into Christianity. Then I started a ministry in Christianity called Perfecting Holiness Ministries, which was a ministry of helps. One of the things I like to do is help other ministries structure and set up their Bible studies, their Sunday schools. And I was researching and studying. Then I became an apologist, where I was debating the Hebrew Israelites and Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and SDAs and all of that. And then eventually, in 2012, a friend of mine who was on the same journey as me, same path as me, she, I guess at that time, did not have a connection with Christianity anymore. Because she's like, how come all this stuff, information we learn about Christianity is coming from white people? She said, people that don't look like us. Because she was trying to read like church father, patristic sources, and read commentary. She's like, this is a whole bunch of white people. She's like, I don't feel that connection there. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then she started to get into Kemet, and then she says, hey, Divine, I got some suggestions of stuff for you to read and for you to watch. I'm like, okay. So she put me on to, people in the conscious community. So put me on to Ashra Kwesi. Say, hey, watch some of his stuff, Divine. I was like, okay. She put me on to Bobby Hemmett. She put me on to Valentine. She put me on to Sa Netta. She put me on to all this stuff, and she said, hey, watch this. Let me know what you think. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. I'm like, then I started to look at some of this stuff, and I'm like, man, this stuff is demonic. Like, she's going to lose her soul. Then I said, okay, let me go ahead and research this stuff and look into all this other conscious stuff that she's giving me. And let me find a way to show her the error in going this path and how it's going to compromise her soul, right? So I was really concerned about her soul. So, and through researching this and all of this stuff, and mind you, I was debating Hebrew Israelites before as an apologist. I started to look into this stuff, and I was like, wow, I'm looking at Christianity the wrong way. That was my main thing. I'm looking at Christianity the wrong way, because that's when I started to really learn about white supremacy. Now, I've come across white supremacy in conversations in the past and some minor research in the past, but not to the depth of 2012 and afterwards. And then I started researching. I'm like, yo, white supremacy is crazy. I said, man, I learned about all these other groups in the community, Black community. I said, let me go on and research with them. So I went to a mosque, right? I went to a masjid. I went to a mosque, right? I went and spent time with the Nuwabians and learning from some stuff from them. The Moor Science Temple of America, from NOI, from these Kemetic groups that I would go to lectures about and learn stuff from. For the New Age conscious community, like the Bami Hemmets and Bill Valentine's and so on. So I started going to those lectures and learning that stuff and talking to brothers and sisters in that community. And I learned stuff. And one thing that I realized is that, man, I can't do Christianity anymore. There's so much white supremacy ingrained into the Christianity that we celebrate and that we use in the Western Hemisphere. It's not contributing anything to my soul, right? So I was like, man, so I started backing away from Christianity heavy, but I did not give up the Bible, right? And I still saw that some of these conscious communities still use the Bible. So I saw value in the Bible. But I was like, man, you know what? I don't really connect with a lot of these groups on that soulish level. I was like, man, there got to be another group out there that values the Bible, but they don't deal with Christianity. And that's when I revisited the Hebrew Israelism, right? What they call today Hebrew Israelism. And I started to say, okay, these brothers on the corner sound like they're preaching a lot of knowledge, but their approach is like, it turned me off. You know what I'm saying? But I was like, look, but what about the foundation of what they're speaking about, right? About us being these people, and y'all talking about us as a nation and going back to these statute laws and commandments to repair our community. I was like, so I went and started studying that, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. But I said, yeah, if I can't prove this stuff, because I'm a skeptic, I'm a critical thinker, if I can't prove this stuff, outside of the rhetoric that I hear about the proponents of it, then I'm not going to subscribe to it. So I went in head first. I did the research. I was able to back up everything that these claims were making. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to rock with this. You know what I'm saying? So that's really my transition in a nutshell, right? And I've told this story tons of times on the internet. And that's really like the short form, the abridged version of how I got into where I'm at today. All right. So hopefully, Trey Waters, that helps to answer your questions. All right. So Layla B. True says, is there a correct way to pray for sins of ancestors biblically? Also, how to take care for and respect of a disabled, emotionally, spiritually abusive parent according to scripture. All right. So Layla B. True, I'm going to answer the first part for you. The second part is like more consultation, right? More of a counseling session that I would give that type of information on. So if you're interested in that, you can email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. We can set up a session, and or you can click the link in the description below to book an appointment, to schedule a discussion, and we can talk about that. But I'm going to address the first portion of it for you. But the second portion, I like to really give that feedback and one-on-one consultations, right? So to how to properly pray for the sins of ancestors, you have to look for a biblical example of a righteous leader who prayed for his ancestors. So I'm going to show that for you, right? And I always give this one example, but there's tons of them in the Bible. The first one I'm going to give is Nehemiah chapter 1, right? So let me go to Nehemiah chapter 1. All right, and we're going to look at Nehemiah's prayer. All right, so Nehemiah says, as soon as I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days. So the key thing is, if you are going to pray for these two things, one, for Yah to forgive your ancestors so that their consequences don't fall upon you, and for Yah to work in your favor in regards to an ask or a need, the prerequisite of that is that you must sit down. That means you must be still. You must weep and mourn for your ancestors, for their sins, for their mishaps and shortcomings that's affected you. Because this is showing outwardly your internal empathy towards wanting forgiveness from Yah, right? And then you fast and then you pray. So you deny yourself of your own desires, your own pleasures. It could be food, or it could be things that you heavily consume outside of food, right? It could be TV that you watch, sports that you play. It could be YouTube, whatever it is, right? These are the prerequisites if you want Yah to hear your appeal for something, okay? Then he says, O Lord God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments. Then you must talk about how great Yah is and speak to his character, okay? Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer of your servant. Now, you must serve Yah. That means you got to keep his statutes, laws, and commandments and obey the words of his son that he has given to us as the last Nabi, last prophet in these end times, right? So you got to do these things, right? You got to be a servant, and being a servant is mean you're doing these things already. You're living this lifestyle where you can ask him to have his ear be attentive and his eyes open, right? To hear the prayer of your servant that I now pray before you day and night. That means you got to be consistent with this prayer, this appeal, right? Day and night for the people of Israel. That means you must pray for your people, your nation first. That's important. You got to pray for them, right? Then he says, confessing the sins of the people of Israel. So I confess the sins of Israel, who was lost sheep here in America, because this is the community I'm part of. Yah, I pray for them. They're ignorant, deaf, dumb, and blind to your will, to your statute, laws, and commandments, to a relationship with you, Yah. Yah, pray for them. I confess before you their sins. You see that? And I include myself in it, which we have sinned against you. Even I and my father's house have sinned. Yah, my father has sinned. My grandfather has sinned. My mother has sinned. My grandmother has sinned. My ancestors have sinned, Yah. And I'm praying before you. I'm confessing that we have sinned so you can forgive us, Yah. That's how you begin. We have acted very corruptly against you and have what? Not kept the commandments, the statutes, and the rules that you commanded your servant Moses. This is our formulaic prayer. It's a template that we then modify based on our current status. Remember the word that you commanded your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the peoples. That's how we are here. But if you return to me and keep my commandments and do them, though you're outcast on the uttermost parts of heaven, from there I will gather them and bring them to the place that I have chosen to make my name dwell there. That's Deuteronomy chapter 30. They are your servants and your people whom you have redeemed by your great power and by your strong hand. Oh, Adonai, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight to fear your name. Do you delight to reverence Yah's name when you hear it? And give success. That's the key thing. Provide an ample and open opportunity that you can guide me through, coupled with my efforts, Yah. And to the prayer of your servants who would like to fear your name, and give success to your servant today, and grant him what? Mercy in the sight of this man. You can't get the mercy with a transactional relationship. See, these are things that when we go to Yah in an appeal before him, that he is able to hear and see because we serve him. We've shown our empathy. We've become very emotive through weeping and mourning and fasting so we can have him attentive. See, you got to do the stuff so Yah can see you. The Bible says his eyes run in there to and fro. He's looking. He got to see you. Oh, what's my servant here? Okay, let me see and hear what's going on. The same way an appeal is made to a king on the behalf of a pauper who typically won't be able to see the king. They have an opportunity for the king to recognize them. Now they're before the king. They want the king to see and hear what the appeal is so the king can grant whatever motion that they're requesting. So if you want to start off with how to properly pray for your ancestors, use this as a template. Okay? All right. Yes, that's correct, my brother, RNT. And I continue to build with those brothers from other communities as well. It has not stopped. So I've been doing it at least for 13 years, since 2012. I've been building with other communities in the Black conscious sphere of knowledge and information and understanding. All right. No. So brother, so when I say I'm praying here, this is the community that I'm part of. If I was in Cameroon, then I would pray for the community there. You can also pray for the diaspora if you want. That's fine. But I'm saying my immediate prayers is concerning here, especially if the move that I want y'all to make is domestic to my current location. All right. Oh, I'm sorry if I called you a he, RT. My bad. My bad. Shalom, Makoti. All right. My bad. Forgive me. All right. Mr. Marco Perkins, shalom, my brother. Oh, if you're going to be at F3, the Fringe Fest, again, I mentioned that to you earlier, the Fringe Fest. Hopefully I see a lot of y'all there. Yes, I will be vending there, so you can pick up products. You can purchase items for me too if you'd like. I will be there in person if you want to meet me, so I can see and meet you, which I like more than you coming to meet me, to make those connections, networking, build relationships, functional relationships. That's not purely transactional. Yes, I will be there, my brother. I would love to see you. And anybody else that's in Atlanta who wants to come, you can still purchase tickets. Just type in F3 Fringe Upfest, and you can still buy tickets. And I think you can still vend too. You still have time to get those things if you want to make it there. All right. So yes, brother, I'd love to see you. All right. Correct. Fasting is not just about food and water, Kidron. Let me give you that final scripture, and then y'all, please, no more questions, because I feel obligated to answer all your questions. No more questions after this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that intertextual Bible to show you how to research and do what's called comparative cultural analysis so you can get a bigger picture of Israelite culture within the ancient Near Eastern background that it sits up against. And after I share that with y'all, I will close out. Okay. Okay, RNT. I remember. You good, Kieran. I'm gonna answer your question real quick. All right, so let me go ahead and get that scripture for you real quick. Let's pull up Isaiah, and then I'm gonna show you where it's not simply just that. Doing good works is part of fasting. Oh yeah, it's deep. Let me share this with you. There we go. Isaiah chapter 58. Y'all read this before. Cry aloud, do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Declare to my people their transgression, to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet they seek me daily and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that did righteousness and did not forsake the judgment of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God. Why? We have fasted and you see it not. So some people fast because they think that that's going to catch Yah's attention. And that's it. No. I showed you what Nehemiah did. He did more than just fast. He wept. He mourned. He coupled that with his fasting. Then he prayed for his people. He prayed for himself, and he prayed for his ancestors so that they could be forgiven and confess their sins. But this is fasting done by people with a lot of hubris, a lot of pride. We have fasted, and you see it not. Why have we humbled ourselves, and you have taken no knowledge of it? Behold, in the day of your fast, you seek your own pleasure. You see that? And oppress all your workers. Behold, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to hit with a wicked fist. Some of you are fasting and still angry and upset with other people. That's not fasting. God's not seeing that. Fasting like yours this day will not make your voice to be heard on high. You see that? So he's going to get into, how do you really fast? It's such the fast that I chose a day for a person to humble himself, not just refrain from food. Humble yourself. Is it to bow down his head like a reed and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Will you call this a fast and a day acceptable to Yah? So in end times, what they would do is they would dress up in sackcloth. Sackcloth is uncomfortable clothing that is very prickly, and it pricks your skin. It makes you uncomfortable because fasting is about being uncomfortable. So they think if I put on sackcloth and ashes represent also fasting, that means you yourself, you're a burnt offering to Yah in a figurative sense. When you sprinkle ashes on your head and put it on the ground, you are symbolizing with those ashes that you are a burnt offering, a voluntary offering that you are giving to appease Yah. You want him to see this figurative burnt offering, which is you humbling yourself with sackcloth on, mourning and fasting before him. People think it's just about an outward ritual, but their hearts don't align with it. Because when Yeshua spoke, he says, what goes in a man is not defile them, but what comes out. So out of the abundance of their heart, the mouth speaks. That's how you can determine what's in somebody's heart, if you let them talk enough. That's why a wise man knows how to keep his lips closed. But he says, is not this the fast that I chose? Not you refraining from eating food, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke. Are y'all doing this when you fast? Is it not to share your bread? Because if you ain't eating it anyway, you might as well give it away. With the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house. Now I would say be selective with that, because we're in a different society today that don't keep Torah. So you can't just let any old person in your house. But some people, y'all may move on you to do that, and that's part of the fast. When you see the naked, to cover him, and not to hide yourself from your own flesh, then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up speedily. Your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of Yah shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and Yah will answer. You shall cry, and he will say, here I am. If you take away the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger, That means take ownership for your wrongs and your errors and your sins. And speaking wickedness, your mouth must be undefiled. If you pour yourself out for the hungry, that means you're giving yourself as an oblation. You're giving yourself as a drink offering that's being poured out. That means you're sacrificing yourself for the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted. Then shall your light rise in the darkness and your gloom be as noonday. And Yah will guide you continually and satisfy your desire in scorched places and make your bones strong. And you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. And your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt and shall raise up the foundation of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach and the restorer of streets to dwell in. Are you the repairer of the breach? Our ancestors have created a gap between us and Yah. Are you repairing that breach? So that the ancient ruins can be rebuilt. Are you doing that? All right. This is the fast that Yah cares about. That food fast that y'all think is sufficient is insufficient to Yah. You need to do more than that. And to sum all that up, it is doing good. Tov, doing what's functional before Yah. In the absence of dysfunction, you focus on the functional elements that Yah desires of us. Okay. All right. All praise to the Most High. So I'm going to fall back. All right. I see some additional questions. I told you I can't answer them now. But if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. If you're enjoying the content, hit the thumbs up. And if you want to get this message to other people, share this in all social media channels so we can get more people the truth and we can beat up and put the algorithm in a headlock and force it to show this content in more people's feeds who are of the lost sheep, the ones who are unaware that this channel even exists, that they can have exposure to it. Okay, so let me show you this one last tool, all right? Because I like to equip the people to study. I don't like to always give you the answer, and I may give you part of the answer, but give you the methodology and the teaching approach, right? So you can learn, so you know how to get to the rest of the answer. Because if I keep giving it to you, you will have no need to do it for yourself. And that means you will always be always be dependent, not independent, always be dependent on divine prospect. That's not the type of relationship that I want with y'all, and the relationship I want with y'all to have with Yah. I'm not the mediator. I'm not. So I'd rather give you the tools, give you the methods, and point you in the right direction so you can get everything for yourself. Very similarly to Numbers chapter 13, when Yah told Moses to get a leader from every tribe of Israel and then send them into the promised land. The purpose of going to the promised land is so that they can get a sample of what's there and bring it back. So I'm giving you the sample and I'm teaching you how to get to the promised land. And when you get there, you got to face your own trials. You got to face your own persecution. You got to face all your own challenges. And then Yah will bring you through because you've been trained properly on how to navigate that path by one of the pioneers who made it that way. And now they're pointing you to that direction. That's all I'm here to do. I'm here so that you can remove the manna of complaint and enjoy the fruit of obedience. All right. So let's transition. All right. Let me get into the Intertextual Bible. Let me show you this nice little tool that I use. Okay. Free tool. Anybody can get it. Anytime, Mark. And if anybody's watching this on the replay, watch it from the beginning all the way to this point. Okay. I sprinkled the little nuggets here and there. Take that nugget, write it down, study and meditate on it, and then go forth. And before we get into the Sabbath, like I always recommend, unburden yourself according to Jeremiah the prophet. How you unburden yourself in 2025? You got to meditate. If you don't know how to meditate, go back and watch my lecture called Meditation by the Book by Divine Prospect. And you will unburden yourself going into the Sabbath so you can enjoy Yah's Sabbath. If you continue to read the rest of Isaiah chapter 58 after where I start, Yah will tell you how to properly keep the Sabbath. People ask that all the time. You don't need halakot to teach you how to properly keep the Shabbat when we already have everything from the written text on how to keep the Shabbat. All right. All right. So let me share this real quick. Free tool. Now, a lot of people don't even know it's even in existence to help you to better study. All right. Let me zoom in on this. All right. This is called Intertextual Bible. Okay. So we go into intertextuality. Now, those of you who have signed up for our KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible Study classes on Patreon, how do you sign up? You go to Patreon, you sign up for the $50 tier because the classes is beginning very soon. I'm finishing up the contextual analysis portion as we speak. Once that's complete, the classes will kick off. I'll give you at least 2 weeks head notice before the classes kick off, and we're going to get back into where we left off from, right? So the first time we dealt with the grammatical analysis, right? The lexical grammatical analysis. Now we into contextual analysis. There's 7 parts of research methodology that if you employ all 7 parts to your studies, you can figure out anything in the Bible. You can comb through everything in the Bible. You can understand everything in the Bible. So one of the things that we teach, one of the things that's part of this 7-fold methodology is intertextuality, comparing different parts of scripture with different other parts of scripture. So you get something in Isaiah chapter 9 compared to something in Matthew chapter 12, right? Or you get something in Hosea and measure it against something in Devarim and Deuteronomy. You get to see the influence that one text has on another, and you get to see allusions, and you get to see connections through quotations and applications of said quotations later on from when it was originally written. You get to see how cohesive the text is. I have a book over there that's called The Old Testament Use of the Old Testament, and it showed you the cohesiveness and how texts are interrelated and correlate with one another, because the influence goes from here to here, and from here to here, and from here to here. Okay? So when you're able to see this common thread, you get to see the bigger tapestry that Yah has seamstress, well, I guess a seamstress, but he's a seamstress who has woven this pattern for those with eyes to see the intercorrelation between scripture. So here, this Bible brings that to view so that you can see the intertextuality between passages and the interrelatedness between passages, okay? So it says here, intertextuality has been described as a mosaic of quotations where any text is the absorption and transformation of another. Because what happens is, after you find all of these things, where when one author looks back on the past at the works of another author, then he builds off of that foundation, so that way it can be reiterated to his immediate audience so they can absorb the information that was initially given from their forefathers. And once the absorption takes place, transformation can happen. And once transformation can happen, then true application can occur. So what happens is, once we read all the way up until the end point of scripture, the end result is not what we leave off at. The end result is how do we absorb it? How does it transform us? And how do we apply it so we can execute it to get the intended results? See, if you're not getting the intended results, then you're not applying it correctly. Then in some way through the absorption, transformation, application process, something went awry. Okay? So it says, it is a term used to describe how the words and or ideas in text are often reused and reimagined by both authors and readers over time. Literary theorists also describe this behavior occurring even when an author is not aware of it. So when I see that, I see the handiwork of Yah. I see Yah through his Ruach moving on an author who is regurgitating, reimagining, reusing, right? Or building off of a foundation of a previous author that was unbeknownst to him. Because the thread of the Ruach from Yah, given his Torah, right? It goes through the ancestry, right? From the oldest ancestor who received it to the youngest ancestor. And when you're able to do this thing, to apply it like the author has done, unbeknownst to him, you are living in that hereditary order. from your ancestors who's gotten it, the ones who were the rightness remnant to obey it, all the way to you today. So intertextuality is a broad term used to describe the many kinds of relationship between written text and other media. That's very important. Now, sometimes some of that intertextuality happens via allusion. An allusion is an indirect reference or a partial representation of another text. Allusions do not generally specify the source they are drawing from and may only use a small part of a source where they are used. Allusions are used where the writer and the reader share common knowledge of other texts. Allusions are commonly known as echoes, tracings, and hints. Now, there's another book on top of the Old Testament use of the Old Testament, which is probably the best resource in regards to this methodology. There's also another book called the New Testament use of the Old Testament. These books are available on the Patreon. You can read it from my library, okay? So sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/divine prospect, and you'll be able to get access to these tools to help you go deeper into the text. You say, why we gotta get deep, Divine? I need to do all of that. I said, yes, because what happens is whenever you read and you study deep, you are digging a well. The deeper your well, the greater the repository of water you can put into it. You may not need that water now when the rains are here, but when there's a drought, you're going to need a deep well to withdraw from, to sustain you until the drought is over. A lot of times you have issues in your life that's occurring now, and it's because you did not have a deep enough well that's filled with the wisdom of Yah, the understanding of Yah. Because if you understood that when you dig a deep well and you fill them with the things of Yah, that when there's a drought, an issue, a situation, a situationship, etc. in your life, you can continually pull from that. During that period of drought, where the teacher's silent to see how the student executes what he's been taught and trained, you have enough of Yah in you to sustain you through these hard times, to endure until the storm is over and the sun is shining through. See, some of y'all don't give any thought to digging deep wells. Sometimes you want to draw from somebody else's well, but a lot of times their experiences may not be pertinent to your unique experience. And you're only doing that because you do not want to take the time, make the effort to dig your own well. I could get into an example in scripture with Isaac, but that's another conversation. I'm going to leave that to those of you who want to research that. Quotation. A quotation is a direct reference and reproduction of another text. Quotations are generally, but not always, faithful, word-for-word representations of a source used to communicate authority in the text that were used before or where they were used. Quotations will often follow a popular formula that directly tells the reader exactly where and why the text is being used, okay? Now, with understanding this particular site gives you various text families: ancient and recent texts, classical texts, Dead Sea Scrolls, Deuterocanon, Hebrew Bible, New Testament, patristic, pseudepigrapha, rabbinic, Samaritan, Septuagint, Targum. So what it does is that it shows you the interrelatedness between all of these texts. So let me give you an example, right? I'm going to go to Ancient Near East, text up top, click on Ancient Near East, and here are texts from the Ancient Near East, and I want to see the relationship between these texts and the Bible, okay? This is scholarly type of research and study, and I'm giving you a source that's doing all the work for you, right? So let's say where I was currently at, I was going back over the Baal cycle, right? And I want to see all the relationships between the Baal cycle, the ones that scholars know for certain, and passages in scripture, right? So one example would be this right here, the Baal cycle of Psalm 48:2. When we go in here, this blue highlighted piece shows you the relationship between this element in the Baal cycle epic and what we find in the psalmist's words in scripture. It says a throne is arranged, and he takes a seat at the right hand of the mightiest Baal as the gods dine and drink. Now, this right here is a heavy trope that's found within scripture. Okay, I'm gonna let you do the research on that. But it says, mightiest Baal declares, hurry, the house, Kothar, quickly construct the palace. You must promptly build the house. You must swiftly construct the palace on the peak of Safan. If you want to know where the god Baal Hadad lives, it's on the mountaintop of Mount Safan. The Bible also correlates this. There is a place in scripture called Baal Safan. The Israelites came upon Baal Safan as they transversed through the wilderness. Okay, let me ease up a little bit, right? Let the house span 1,000 fields, the palace 10,000 hectares. So what is going on here in the Baal cycle? To those of you who may be unfamiliar with it. Well, here in the Baal cycle, Baal has defeated the god Yam. And now he is enthroned as El Elyon by El. So in response to that, he is requesting for a palace to be built in his honor. When your God is enthroned, you are obliged to create a temple, a palace, or some property in his honor. That's why when you see when Nathan came to David in regards to the tabernacle and the temple, Yah said, I was homeless coming out of Egypt. You live in a palace, David, but I ain't got no place to live. I'm roaming to and fro with y'all. I need a house. So your son Solomon is going to build me the house. Why? Because the text says that Yah has given David dominion over all his enemies. That's why Solomon came up in peace, because of David, what he did. So when you defeat your enemies and a patron deity has given you that victory, in response, you build a temple. In response, you build a palace. In response, you build an altar. In response, you give a standing stone memorial. You have to give something in exchange for when Yah actually does these things for you. And one thing you can employ if you want to reinstate pre-exilic Israelite culture is that every time Yah gives you a major victory in your life, create a standing stone memorial in your backyard. Do something. It could be physical, which they did back in the day, or it could be something abstract that you write on paper, right? Or it could be something that you buy that represents Yah's victory in your life. Something that you can call to mind when things get rough. You can go back to the repository of memories and say, Yah did it for me then. He surely can do it now. The problem is I'm in a valley state. So some valleys are shorter than others. You're getting from one mountaintop to the other. I've transversed and made it up this one, Yah. Now I got to come down to keep it moving. But now this valley seems to be longer. So Yah, this valley seems treacherous. So your grace and your mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. So there are different things you learn through the valley experience with Yah. But you have to be reminded of the victories that Yah has done and call them to mind. So in the interim period, when you don't have a victory at hand, you know he's prepping you for the next mountaintop. Okay. So this is what is going on in the Bible cycle. In the scriptures, in Psalm 48, it says a psalm of the Korahites. It says, the Lord is great and certainly worthy of praise in the city of our God, his holy hill. It is lofty and pleasing to look at, a source of joy to the whole earth. Mount Zion resembles the peaks of Zaphon. It is the city of the great king. So in Zaphon, Mount Zaphon, Baal was enthroned as the king. Here it says Mount Zion resembles the peaks of Mount Zaphon, which is known ancestrally to be the enthronement capital of where Baal Hadad has been seated. God is in his fortresses. He reveals himself as his defender. For look, the kings assemble, they advance together. Over here on the right side, you have what's called notes and references, and it'll give you some insights into the interrelatedness between the Baal cycle and the psalm that we just read. We also have tags here underneath Psalm where it says the Baal cycle. If you want to look into it more, Psalms, Psalm 48. Then you can compare the Baal cycle with Psalms and the ancient Near East with the Hebrew Bible. That is just the start of how to use this resource or this tool. You also have visualizations here that you can actually look at. So, for example, I'll do ancient Near East and I'll do Hebrew Bible, generate visual, and then to show me the interrelatedness visually between these various texts. So, for example, you see the Psalms here. You see this yellow line come all the way across to show you KTU, which is Ugarit. and show you there's a heavy interrelatedness between Psalms and the Ugaritic tablets. There's so many resources available for free. We just don't know about it. And if your leaders are not giving you these tools, it's because they want themselves to be the source of your knowledge, understanding, and information. Divine is not here to do that. I'm pointing you and giving you the tools to build for yourself. These leaders want you relying on them. You know why? Because you are paying for their lifestyle. You are paying for their bills. You are paying for them to live comfortably the way they're living. You're paying for that. So in order for that relationship to work in their favor, they must always be the superior and you must always be the inferior. You must always be the patron, their patron, and you must always cater to them. You must always exclusively come to them for knowledge and information. Your leaders have failed you, but I'm not, because I'm only giving you what you need to build your own relationship with Yah. You don't have to come to me. You don't need me, but I'm just a vessel for Yah to use to teach you how to properly research so you can properly apply the things that you learn. So it becomes absorbed, it transforms you, and you can apply it. And through that application, whatever the intended results is, you can receive that. That is how this relationship is supposed to work with you and your moray, you and your pastor, you and your congregate leader, you and the ecclesiastical staff of whatever you're part of. And if they have not done that, they have failed you. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. All praise to the Most High. Oh, so Kodak, I'm talking about like a standing stone. So, for example, you can get a stone, and this is another easy way to do it. Find a rock, pebble, stone, right? Incise into it some one word or two words to remind you of what he's did. You could say employment or job for short. You could say relationship. You can say marriage. You can say children. You can say, let's say house, right? Or bait, a house. You can say whatever it is that's going to remind you of what Yah did for you before, or create a standing memorial with stones. This is what you see Joshua do. This is what you see Moshe do. This is what you see our ancestors have done, the patriarchs have done to remind them or call to mind the things that Yah has done for them. So whenever they revisit that place, it will bring to mind what Yah has done for them in that area. We can do the same thing in our lives today. Humans are visual creatures. We rely on our sight more than any other sense that we possess. It's part of our natural progression and development as a species. So because of this, Yah wants us to make use of this visual nature by creating things that reminds us of him. That's why we have the zeets and the fringes. They're there to remind you to keep his commandments, because he knows that we are a visual people. You can do that as well, RNT. Whatever it is, you can do these things to remind you of Yah's goodness, his grace, and his mercy. Only if you have a relational relationship with him and not a transactional relationship with him. So I hope that all that was poured out today can help to fill your cup to the point where it's overflowing, that you can pour some into somebody else's. The best way to pay it back is to pay it forward. Look, I'm not here because I need y'all to pay my bills, right? I'm here because Yah's called me to shepherd over y'all so y'all can be the shepherds in whatever sphere of life that y'all are in. I'm not here to take all the credit for anything. Yah gets all the glory. But at the end of the day, always examine the motives of those who are teaching you and ensure that they are giving you all the necessary tools to do everything in their absence. If you cannot function in their absence, then they have not taught you properly. All praise to the Most High. All right, I'm going to go. Yes, Jacob, I'll answer that another day. I did not upload any DNA results to ChatGPT. There's other AI tools that you can also do the same with. I have not done that. People have told me about what my brother, Pastor Kelly Richardson, has done. I started to watch that video. I did not finish it. So until I finish his video to see what he has done, what his results are, in order for it to compare it to anything that I will do, I will have to wait and be patient to absorb that, and then I could do it. Feel free to remind me in future live streams. I have no problem with that, and we can go from there. All right. Yes, Benjamin Gibson, like a gravestone. That's something we do in our culture today to remember somebody that has passed. But we should also create these standing stones for things that Yah has done for us in the past as well. All right. All right, family. We're over 2 hours. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here with me. Remember, when you go to those cookouts today with family, friends, or coworkers, always ask yourself the question, when I am here, who's influencing who? When Yah's looking upon my presence in this area, the tact that I'm employing, who is influencing who? And that is the best way to know that you are progressing or digressing. So I pray that Yah will continue to lead and guide you via his Ruach, that you would get heavier into his word, that you will build a deeper well so you can deposit everything that he has given you, everything you have researched and studied. So sometimes the stuff that you research and study may not be applicable when things are good, but when times are bad, that's when you can go into that tool shed and say, okay, which tool can I use now for this situation? Is it patience? Is it endurance? Is it long suffering? Is it love? Is it joy? Is it meekness? Is it humility? You learn all these things when you are transformed through your studies. If your studies is only giving you knowledge and not transformation, then you will fail to apply what is learned appropriately. Do not be one of those individuals, brother and sisters. So I pray for all of y'all. Thank y'all for your support. If you want to continue to support this ministry so we continue to be here and give you the results of our research and development, you can sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/Divine Prospect, or you can donate in any of the methods down below. And if you need anything from us or an opportunity that you can present to us so we can greater serve you, the people, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. I love you, family. Thank you for watching. As always, see you the next live stream. Peace and shalom. Shalom, shalom.